21-year-old nephew applied, showed up for training, and was asked why he was there. Why? My 21-year-old nephew showed up to a warehouse for a fairly large U.S. retailer to apply for a job, and was told to apply online. He did so, was interviewed over the phone, and then was emailed a day and time to come in for training. He showed up early on the day, but when he arrived, was asked why he was there and that he couldn't just show up for work whenever he wanted. He was completely confused and told on the spot they had emailed him a different day and time. He came home dejected, and we checked his email, nothing in spam, nothing. He then got an email a few hours later and was told they were not pursuing his employment any further and that they had already emailed him about now wanting to hire him a week prior. Again, no email. Why? He wants to work. Has good references. The place has massive turnover. Is the hiring manager just that bad? Pay was decent. Nothing amazing. Just don't understand and don't really think there's much he can do because he wasn't even in employee. They wasted 2 weeks of his time when he could have been looking elsewhere. Just ranting. Thanks. I would consider this a bullet dodged and look elsewhere for employment. No one wants to work these days! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. That's why we are so short-staffed! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Quote. Tell him to reply to the email saying he showed up and was sent home, and ask how to collect his show-up pay for the day. Sounds like Amazon, to be honest. They pull stunts like that all the time. Once I was hired for a certain position, kept the screenshots, went in for training. They trained me for a different job. When I asked why I was not being trained for the job I was offered, I was told they never offered me that job. I then showed them the screenshots and was told that since I couldn't follow employee rules of no phones on the floor or in warehouse, then they no longer needed me to work for them. This was during peak season, by the way. This happened to me once. Lol. Applied to a waitressing job. Manager emailed me, we'll call her Janet, and told me to come in the next night. I show up to the restaurant and the male owner is confused. Janet didn't tell him I was coming. She wasn't working that night, and didn't have the authority to hire me or anyone. I just stayed anyway. They put me through a working interview, where I shadowed a waitress for an hour or so. Then they gave me free food and I went home. Never heard back from them. Tears of joy. There's the evidence for why turnover is so high. The right hand doesn't know what the left is doing. Communication is trash, and no one seems to own up to mistakes. I'm sorry your nephew went through that. It does suck when people jerk you around, even if it's better for him in the long run. Massive turnover is a huge sign of mismanagement. There is a company that has been advertising on radio for a route salesperson for like 3 years. Take that advertising money and pay it to the new route salesperson and you might keep the employee. I was once promised a warehouse job, but told to wait 2 weeks to start. So I stopped my search and enjoyed my 2 weeks until I heard nothing as the date got closer. I called and was told they filled the position. Sorry, bastards. It was summer, so I walked down the street to the next company and they took me on the spot. Home Depot warehouse HR once called me for an interview after I had been working there for a week. Amazon does this all the time. They claim it is because of how complicated the numbers and logistics of hiring are. My issue is that this is a problem they created and expect those with the least and most to lose to absorb any of the difficulties that go along with it, instead of, say, the multi-billion-dollar corporation. The place has massive turnover for a reason. Shit like this. He dodged a bullet. Leave a review on Glassdoor to help others. I have a suspicion that the current jobs market is just one big scam for tax breaks. The companies are lying about hiring numbers and about not being able to find employees. Nobody wants to work, and all that included. The question is why? What's the benefit? Well, my suspicions are about the PPP and the ERC. Employee retention credit or something like that. That was established with COVID. Basically, the government is paying companies because nobody was working, and this was to offset the loss of labor. But now they're still collecting money from these programs despite most companies not being eligible if they are honest about their numbers. So they have to lie. Or do things like this. Turn away people who want to work. In order to keep getting their free stimmies from Big Brother. I have no proof. But I have reasonable suspicion. There is a disconnect between what companies are saying and what job searchers are saying. The bigger problem is the Fed keeps raising rates based on these false employment numbers being given by companies without knowing the true damage they're doing. We're headed for a cliff once all these things come to a head and the markets realize what is actually happening with the economy. Meanwhile, the dollar was getting devalued by continual money printing and trickle-up economics for the rich, while the poor only became more and more destitute. This all makes the economy top-heavy, which is unsustainable, and the poor never have a fighting chance at a life worth living. Shit's about to hit the fan. But remember, nobody wants to work anymore. Tell him next time he applies for a job and gets an email like that to print out the email and bring it with him. He should also be allowed to pull it up on his phone right there, as even further proof. This feels as a discrimination issue. He applied online, interviewed over the phone. No one from the company saw him before he showed up on his first day of work. Props to your nephew. I'm 22, and if this happened to me, my confidence would be wrecked. He could have pulled out his phone and showed the email. I work in a warehouse too that is a big box retail. He dodged a bullet. So often safety is taken a back seat over numbers, but they always claim to be about safety. They would have broken him until he could not work, and when he gets hurt they would question it. The pay may have been fine, but for what needs to be done it's not enough. Sounds like the company doesn't know which end is up. Dodged a bullet there.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.